Hi, my name is Chloe Anderson. I'm 35, and this all went down last Thanksgiving. I'd flown back home to our sprawling old house in Charleston, South Carolina, the one with the huge porch and Spanish moss hanging from the oaks. The air was thick with the smell of roasting turkey and the sound of the fireplace crackling. The whole family was gathered around the big dining table, laughing, clinking glasses, passing platters of food, acting for all the world like we were the perfect happy family from a holiday movie. I waited. I waited until everyone had a full plate and a fuller mouth. Then I put on my brightest smile and asked, just as casual as can be, "Hey, did the hospital ever mail that appointment letter for the surgery?" My dad, Robert, and my stepmom, Susan, shared a look, and then they actually chuckled. "Oh yeah, that came last week," Dad said without missing a beat as he carved another slice of turkey. "But we went ahead and used that money for Liam's 26th birthday party. I mean, the kid only turns 26 once, you know?" The whole table just kept smiling, nodding along as if he just commented on the weather. My brother, Liam, didn't even look up from his phone. I placed my fork down on the porcelain plate, making a small, deliberate clink. I looked my father and Susan dead in the eye, and my voice was unnervingly calm when I spoke. "So I guess you still don't know who actually needed that surgery." The cheerful noise in the room didn't just fade, it vanished. It was like someone hit a kill switch on the universe. My dad's face went from ruddy and cheerful to the color of ash. My stepmom, Susan, froze with a gravy ladle hovering halfway to her plate. Liam finally looked up from his phone, his brow furrowed in confusion. That one single sentence had detonated our family Thanksgiving, turning it into a waking nightmare in less than 3 seconds. If you've ever been the one to say the single thing at a family dinner that makes everyone suddenly forget how to chew, you have to drop your story in the comments below. I promise I read every single one, and you're going to want to keep watching until the end because what happened to them after this? Trust me, you're going to want to see it. Their faces had turned a ghostly white, and not another word was spoken for the rest of the night. The first hint of morning light was filtering through the old plantation shutters in the living room, but I hadn't moved from the couch. I'd been sitting there all night, motionless. My phone, its screen now a spider web of cracks from where I'd dropped it in my initial shock, was still clutched in my hand. With trembling fingers, I unlocked it and opened my banking app. Just one more time, praying to God that the number I'd seen was a hallucination, a bad dream. But it was real. Zero. $195,000. Vanished. For the last decade, I had been the silent, invisible engine keeping this family running. Every promotion, every bonus, every ounce of overtime I worked went straight into their lives, funding their comfort while I subsisted on instant noodles and exhaustion. It paid for Liam's tuition at the College of Charleston, a degree he never even used. It was the down payment on his gleaming new convertible when he turned 21 because, as he'd argued, it was essential for his image. It was the security deposit and first 6 months' rent on a ridiculous, overpriced apartment on King Street so he could network with the right people. It was the endless supplemental credit cards on my account, cards he handed out to his friends like party favors. I never once said no. I was the fixer, the provider, the family ATM. 11 months earlier, this whole nightmare had its quiet beginning. Liam had crashed at my small apartment after one of his many long nights out. He was passed out on my sofa, snoring loud enough to rattle the windows. As I threw a blanket over him, I noticed his knuckles. They were red and swollen again. He'd been complaining for months about a deep, aching pain in his joints, always brushing it off as lingering injuries from his high school football days. But my gut, a gut honed by years of fixing his problems, told me this was something far more sinister. While he slept, my heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and resolve, I carefully drew 2 small vials of blood using a sterile kit I'd ordered online. I felt like a spy in my own life. The next morning, I drove them to a private lab myself using a fake name for the submission. 2 agonizing days later, Dr. Ben Carter, my college ex-boyfriend, and, as fate would have it, the only rheumatologist in the city I truly trusted, called me on my personal cell. His voice was grim. "Chloe, it's aggressive. It's rheumatoid arthritis, and it's moving fast. He's in that critical early window. If he starts on biologic infusions within the next 6 to 8 months, there's a 90% chance we can halt the permanent damage. We can stop it in its tracks. But Chloe, after that window closes, we're not talking about management anymore. We're talking about lifelong deformity and a dependency on heavy-duty opioids." I didn't tell a single soul. Liam would have descended into a spiral of self-pity and denial. My dad would have dismissed it as an exaggeration. And Susan, she would have somehow twisted it into a dramatic spectacle for her friends. So I did what I always did. I shouldered the burden and set out to fix it, quietly, in the background. I established a revocable living trust, with my name, and only my name, as the trustee. The sole beneficiary was Liam Anderson, and the funds were designated for medical expenses only. I poured every penny I had into it. Every bonus, my entire tax refund, the money I'd saved for a trip to Italy I'd dreamed of for years, $195,000. It was the exact amount the medical center wanted as an upfront deposit for the first year of his biologic therapy. Because my work as a consultant required frequent travel, I added a single fateful emergency clause. In the event of an immediate, verifiable medical need for Liam, either of his parents could request a disbursement. It required their verbal confirmation from them, followed by a mandatory confirmation email from me. I never in a million years thought they would use it, but they did. Just last week, while I was stuck in a conference in Chicago, Susan had called my private banker. She used the exact rehearsed words from the clause. "Chloe's out of the country. Liam's in a medical crisis. She authorized me to handle it." Then she'd forwarded the banker an email. It came from an address that was a perfect predatory imitation of mine. Chloe. Anderson.corp.travel, 91@gmail.com. The email gave full, explicit permission. Uno, the banker, seeing the emergency clause in the trust, seeing the carefully crafted email and hearing the fabricated panic in Susan's voice as she cried on the phone, released the entire amount in a single wire transfer. And where did it all go? To Liam's 26th birthday party, a weekend-long bash at a rented historic mansion south of the city. They'd flown in some semi-famous DJ from Miami. There were custom fireworks launched over the marsh. 300 guests, half of whom were Instagram influencers who needed content. An open bar, catered by the city's trendiest chef. They even had ice sculptures of his initials. I didn't have to imagine it. I pulled up Liam's Instagram. The stories from the weekend were still active. There he was, crowd surfing over a sea of hands, popping a magnum of champagne on a balcony as the sun rose, grinning like a king in front of a massive neon sign that read, "Liam 26 Unstoppable." He was literally bathed in the glow of the money that was supposed to keep him from spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. He had no idea. I sat there on that couch in the silent pre-dawn gloom until the sun was high in the sky, the phone long dead in my lap. My little brother, the same kid I used to give piggyback rides to in the park, was about to have his future shattered because our own parents had torched it for a single weekend of social media likes and cheap fireworks. For the first time in 10 years of cleaning up their messes, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt a crucial, load-bearing switch inside of me click off, plunging my heart into a cold, quiet darkness. And that was the morning I decided they were, once and for all, on their own. The doorbell shrieked through the house at 2 a.m, jarring me from a restless doze on the couch. I didn't need to look. I knew exactly who it was. I unbolted the door and pulled it open to find them framed in the porch light. My dad, Susan, and Liam, a trinity of late-night rage, reeking of expensive bourbon. Susan shoved past me without a word, her face a mask of fury. She was clutching a thick sheaf of credit card statements like a weapon. "You cut off every single one of Liam's supplemental cards, didn't you?" she hissed, slapping the papers down on my coffee table so hard they scattered. His Amex is declined. Everywhere. He couldn't even buy a tank of gas yesterday, Chloe. Gas! Dad stormed in right behind her, his face flushed and his voice booming. The payment for the convertible bounced. The repo company already left a notice on the windshield. "They're coming to get it in 48 hours, Chloe." 48 hours, Liam, my poor oblivious brother, just lingered in the doorway. His hoodie was pulled up, his eyes were bloodshot, and he somehow looked smaller and more pathetic than I'd ever seen him. "Sis," he mumbled. The leasing office taped a 10-day pay or quit notice on the penthouse door this morning. My roommates are freaking out. I'm about to be homeless." I closed the front door slowly, the heavy oak thudding shut, and leaned back against it. For the first time in my adult life, in the face of their coordinated onslaught, I didn't flinch. I felt nothing but a profound, chilling calm. Susan wasn't finished. Her voice was climbing, growing shriller with every word. "Do you have any idea how this looks? How humiliating this is? His friends are blowing up his phone. Yo, man, why's your card dead? He's 26 years old, Chloe, not some broke college kid. You're destroying his reputation." Dad took a step closer, pointing a trembling finger at my chest. "You don't get to just pull the plug whenever you get a little emotional. This family runs on a system. It runs on what you provide. It always has. You stop, we all stop. That's the deal we have." It was Liam who delivered the final pathetic plea. He finally stepped all the way inside, rubbing the back of his neck in that nervous way he had since he was a boy. "Come on, Chloe, just turn everything back on. I'll pay you back. I swear. My next brand deal is about to hit. 2 weeks, tops." I looked at each of them, one by one. The entitled patriarch, the manipulative stepmother, the coddled prince. A decade of their entitlement flashed through my mind like a high-speed montage. The thousands of dollars I'd wired at 3 a.m. to cover his bar tabs so he could keep up appearances. The family vacations I'd canceled for myself to pay for his spiraling rent. The birthdays, Christmases, and graduations I'd worked through, pulling double shifts to fund his lifestyle. I took one long, slow breath, letting it fill my lungs. No. The word was so quiet, but it landed in the tense silence of the room like a gunshot. Susan's mouth literally fell open. What did you just say?" "I said no," I repeated, my voice stronger this time. "Not another dime, not another car payment, not another excuse. It's over. All of it." My dad's face went from red to a dangerous shade of purple. "You don't get to decide that. You've been bankrolling this family since you were 24 years old. That's your role, Chloe. You don't just get to walk away from your responsibilities. My role?" I let out a short, sharp laugh that held no humor. "I'm not an ATM with a pulse, Dad." Liam tried to use the puppy dog eyes, the same look that had always worked on me when we were kids, the one that could get me to give him my dessert or do his chores. "Sis, please, I've got appearances lined up. I have sponsors I need to meet. If I show up looking broke, if my card gets declined, it's over for me. My entire brand is ruined." Susan, ever the dramatist, snatched the scattered statements from the table and fanned them out like a poker hand. "Look at these balances. Look at what you've done. Do you want your little brother living on the street? Is that what you want?" I didn't even glance at the papers. He's 26 years old. He has a college degree he never uses, a car he can't afford, and an apartment he doesn't pay for. That is not my mess to clean up anymore. Dad took another step, his voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm tone he always used right before he exploded. "You think this is the end of it? You think we're just going to roll over and let you destroy everything we've built?" Susan's eyes narrowed into slits. "You have 24 hours to reverse every single cutoff. The cards, the car note, the rent, all of it. or you are going to find out exactly how far we're willing to go to protect this family." Liam just stood there, staring at the floor, shifting his weight from foot to foot, just waiting for me to crack and fold like I always did. Instead, I walked right past them, pulled the front door open wide, and stood there holding it. "Your 24 hours starts now," I said. "Get out of my house." They stood frozen for a moment, dumbfounded as if waiting for the punchline of a joke. When it never came, Susan scooped up her papers, muttering something venomous under her breath. Dad gave me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, a look that could have melted steel. Liam hesitated the longest, a flicker of genuine confusion on his face, before shuffling out behind them into the night. The door shut. I locked it. I slid the chain across. And for the first time in a decade, the house was completely, blessedly quiet. I stood there in the dark hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs, waiting for the familiar, crushing wave of guilt to wash over me. It never came. A thick manila envelope was propped against my front door when I got home from work a few days later. No stamp, no return address, just my name, Chloe Anderson, typed in a cold, bold font. I carried it inside, my stomach twisting into a knot. I slid a finger under the flap and pulled out the contents. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Petition for appointment of guardian of the estate and person for Chloe Marie Anderson. And below that, filed by Robert and Susan Anderson, petitioners. The cover letter from their attorney, a man named Arthur Vance, was only 4 paragraphs long, but each one was a precision-guided missile aimed at the foundation of my life. Paragraph 1 stated that I had, abruptly and without justification, ceased all financial support to my family, causing them undue hardship. Paragraph 2 claimed I had exhibited alarming signs of severe mental instability, including paranoid isolation and irrational hostility toward my loved ones. Paragraph 3 alleged that I posed an imminent risk of dissipating my substantial estate and was a danger to my own well-being. And Paragraph 4, the final brutal punch. If I voluntarily signed the enclosed guardianship agreement immediately, they would generously limit the proceeding to financial oversight only. If I refused, they would proceed with a motion for full guardianship of both my person and my estate, including the right to have me placed under involuntary psychiatric evaluation and to control all of my medical decisions. Attached was the pre-filled agreement. My signature line was already helpfully marked with a little blue arrow sticker. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the papers steady. I read the entire packet 3 times, each page a new layer in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. They had attached sworn statements, one from a neighbor claiming I rarely left the house anymore and talked to myself in the yard. A printout of my credit report showing that I had paid off and closed all joint accounts, presented as erratic financial behavior. They had screenshots of text messages I'd sent Liam, telling him to get a job, framed as verbal abuse. There was even a note from Susan's therapist, a woman I had never met, claiming Susan feared for my safety because I had become cold, unreachable, and detached from reality. The most terrifying part was a draft of an emergency ex parte order, ready to be filed, asking a judge to freeze every single bank account in my name until a hearing could be scheduled. I called the only person I could think of who wouldn't panic, the only person who navigated this kind of treachery for a living, Isabel Reed, the sharp, no-nonsense attorney who had handled a work contract for me years ago. She picked up on the second ring. "Chloe, slow down, just breathe. Send me everything, right now." 20 minutes later, she called back. Her voice was calm but taut with urgency. "Okay, they're filing under Article 1 of Chapter 35A of South Carolina law. It allows family to petition for guardianship if they can demonstrate incompetence or imminent harm to self or others. This voluntary agreement," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "is a trap. You sign it, you hand them the keys to your entire life. Your money, your freedom, everything. If you fight it, they'll push for an emergency hearing and ask the clerk to appoint an interim guardian on the spot. I've seen it happen, Chloe. They go in, they cry, and a sympathetic clerk can sign your rights away before you even know what's happening. My voice was a whisper. How strong is their case? Right now, it's garbage. It's built on lies, but clerks grant these interim orders on thin evidence all the time. We need to move, and we need to move fast. She told me to start gathering everything. Every bank record, every text message thread, every email, any piece of proof that I was perfectly sane and that they were the ones who had emptied a medical trust for a party. She also told me to brace myself because it was about to get much, much uglier. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by a fortress of manila folders, scanning and printing documents until the sun came up. Every time the thought of just signing the papers to make it all stop crept into my mind, I pictured Liam, grinning, popping another bottle of champagne he didn't pay for. The nausea would rise and my resolve would harden like steel. By morning, I had a plan. I wasn't going to sign a damn thing. I wasn't going to beg. And I sure as hell was not going to let them lock me up just to keep their gravy train running. I sealed my own envelope, one much thicker than theirs, addressed it to Mr. Arthur Vance, attorney at law, and dropped it in the outgoing mail. Inside was a single, concise legal document prepared by Isabel. It was a notice of intent to vigorously contest their petition and to file a countersuit for malicious prosecution and abuse of process. At the bottom, Isabel had added a handwritten note, "See you in court." Snow came down in a flurry that night, a rare, thick blanket for Charleston that swallowed the streetlights and muffled the world in white. I had just dragged myself home from the grocery store, my arms laden with bags, when I saw it. A certified letter taped to my front door, the green and white of the envelope stark against the dark wood. It was from my employer's HR department. My stomach plunged before I even tore it open. Inside, a single professionally printed sheet of paper delivered the blow: immediate termination of all health coverage due to the detection of multiple fraudulent claims submitted under your policy, exceeding $47,000. Stapled behind the letter were 7 itemized bills: emergency psychiatric holds at MUSC Hospital, inpatient detox at a rehab facility on Johns Island, suicide watch admissions at the state hospital. All of them were dated within the last 45 days. All of them listed me, Chloe Anderson, as the patient. And all of them were complete with forged electronic signatures that were a terrifyingly accurate copy of my own. I had never set foot in any of those places. I called the insurance carrier right there on my front porch, the snow melting into my coat, a chilling dampness seeping into my bones. After 43 excruciating minutes on hold, listening to a tinny, looping jazz flute, a supervisor finally came on the line. Her voice kept cracking with professional discomfort as she read the claims back to me. "Ma'am, these were submitted electronically through the provider portal. They used your member ID, your date of birth, and included a digital attestation of service. Under federal law, we are required to suspend coverage pending a full fraud investigation. I demanded the IP addresses for the submissions." She hesitated, then read them off. Every single one traced back to a single address, the address of the house I grew up in. Later that same night, just after 1:30 a.m., someone started hammering on my front door so hard the walls of my little house shook. I crept to the peephole, my heart pounding in my throat. 2 Charleston PD cruisers were parked in my driveway, their light bars silently painting the blizzard in strokes of red and blue. A blast of snowy wind poured in when I cracked the door open. The officer closest to me was a woman, brushing flakes from her shoulders. Her nameplate read Rossi. "Detective Maria Rossi, ma'am. We received a 911 call from a family member. They stated you were inside attempting to take your own life. The caller reported hearing screaming and the sound of breaking glass. We need to come in and visually confirm your safety." My teeth started chattering, and it had nothing to do with the cold. "I'm alone," I managed to stammer. I was asleep. She gave me a practiced, weary nod, the kind that said she'd heard it all before. Policy requires a full welfare check when the report is this specific, ma'am. It'll only take a minute. I had no choice but to step aside. 2 officers moved through my house with practiced efficiency, their wet boots leaving dark prints on my hardwood floors. They opened every closet, checked under the bed, shined their flashlights into the dark shower, and even pulled open drawers in my bathroom, searching for pill bottles. One of them radioed back, his voice flat. Subject is located, conscious and alert. No visible injuries, no weapons, no signs of self-harm. The scene is clear. Detective Rossi handed me a refusal of medical transport form to sign. My signature was a shaky, illegible scrawl. As they turned to leave, she paused on the doorstep, the snow swirling around her hat. "You want to tell me who has it out for you this bad?" I let out a single broken laugh, a sound that hurt coming out. "My parents." She didn't even blink. "We get a lot of these calls. Most of them aren't real." She reached into her coat and handed me her card. "Next time they pull this, you call me directly. My cell is on the back. I'll make sure the responding officers know the history." After their taillights vanished into the snow, I stood in the open doorway, letting the freezing storm blow in until my fingers went numb. Then I shut the door, slid every bolt, and for good measure dragged a heavy armchair under the knob. I opened the insurance portal on my laptop and watched as my Platinum Health Plan, the one I paid a fortune for, was highlighted in stark, unforgiving red. Canceled. Fraud investigation pending. $47,000 in fake claims. A 1:30 a.m. visit from the police. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. This was a war of attrition. I curled up on the couch, still in my wet coat, my boots dripping onto the rug. The house was utterly silent except for the wind rattling the old window panes. And for the first time since I cut them off, the absolute crushing loneliness of it all crashed over me like an avalanche. No one was coming to save me. Worse, no one in a position of authority even believed I needed saving. I stayed on that couch until the gray morning sky turned the color of dishwater, clutching Detective Rossi's card in my hand so tightly it left deep indentations in my palm. A process server, a man in a wrinkled gray suit that looked as tired as he did, caught me in the Harris Teeter parking lot on a warm April afternoon. It was the kind of perfect spring day in Charleston when the sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue and the air smells of jasmine. He stepped directly in front of my shopping cart, blocking my path, and handed me a thick white envelope bearing the red, circular seal of the Charleston County Courthouse. I knew what it was before the wind even caught the corner and broke the seal. Summons in Reese, guardianship of Chloe Marie Anderson. The hearing was set for April 28th, 9 a.m. Courtroom 2B, Clerk of Superior Court Julia Spencer presiding. I leaned against the warm metal of my car and read every single page right there in the bright, unforgiving sunlight. They had assembled 11 witnesses. A Dr. Marcus Tran, a board-certified psychiatrist I'd never heard of, claimed in a sworn affidavit that he had been treating me for an acute psychotic break with suicidal command hallucinations. A social worker named Lisa Chen alleged she had made 3 unannounced home visits where I had refused her entry and screamed threats of self-harm through the door. There were statements from 3 former co-workers, from a job I'd left 5 years ago, swearing I had begun hoarding medications and expressing extreme paranoia about my family. 2 supposed neighbors, from streets I had never lived on, described my erratic behavior, including screaming into the night. A barista from a downtown coffee shop claimed I had collapsed in the cafe, sobbing uncontrollably about wanting to end it all. Every affidavit was notarized on the exact same date by the exact same notary. Every single one painted a picture of me as a ticking time bomb who had irresponsibly severed financial support from my dependent family, thereby endangering myself and them. The final page, the prayer for relief, Ask Clerk Spencer to declare me incompetent, appoint Robert and Susan Anderson as joint guardians of my person and estate, and grant them immediate emergency powers to freeze all my accounts, revoke my driver's license, and place me in protective custody pending a full psychiatric adjudication. I drove straight to Isabel Reed's office, the windows down, the thick envelope flapping on the passenger seat like a trapped bird. Isabel spread the papers across her vast mahogany conference table and began marking them with different colored highlighters. Yellow for blatant lies, pink for likely perjury, orange for actual crimes. 11 sworn statements, all filed within 4 days of each other, she said, her voice a low, dangerous hum. That's not a coincidence, Chloe. That's a paid orchestra. Look here. She tapped a page. The notary. Same woman on every single one. And 3 of these witnesses use the exact same turn of phrase. Subject stated she would rather die than continue supporting her family. Word for word. It's a script. She pulled up the South Carolina Clerk of Court manual on her laptop. Guardianship hearings are bench trials. No jury. That means Julia Spencer is the judge, jury, and executioner in that room. If she believes even 30% of this garbage, she can sign an order on the spot and you lose your freedom before you've had lunch. I stared at the list of names, my supposed witnesses, until they blurred into an incomprehensible scrawl. How do we kill it, Isabel? We don't just kill it, Isabel said, sliding a thick, freshly printed counter motion across the table to me. We bury it. She'd already been working. She'd subpoenaed the notary's logbook. She'd pulled the security footage from the coffee shop, which showed me calmly buying a latte and leaving on the day I had supposedly collapsed. She had my HR files from work, proving I was in meetings on every single date I had allegedly been visited by the fictitious social worker. Better yet, she had statements from 2 of the 11 witnesses. They had cracked the second one of Isabel's investigators showed up at their door and admitted they were each paid $500 in cash to sign whatever was put in front of them. Most importantly, she had Dr. Ben Carter locked in and ready. He'll testify live and in person, Isabel said, her eyes glinting. He will provide full medical disclosure of Liam's diagnosis, the missed treatment window, the forged trust documents, the invoice for the fireworks, everything. It will be under oath, in open court. For the first time in your life, your parents are going to hear the unvarnished truth from someone who isn't you. I spent the next 3 weeks living inside a fortress of document boxes. I printed every bank statement, every text, every email. I practiced answering Isabel's questions in mock depositions until my voice stopped shaking. I even walked the courthouse hallways at night when the building was empty, just to memorize the route from the metal detectors to courtroom 2B. On the morning of April 28th, the dogwood trees outside the courthouse were exploding in pink blossoms against the old stone walls. I wore the navy blue suit I'd bought for my first real job interview at 24, the one I had sworn I would never need to wear again. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy, smelling of lemon polish and palpable fear. My dad and Susan sat at the petitioner's table, looking strangely small and washed out in clothes I'd never seen before. Their lawyer, Arthur Vance, kept adjusting his tie like it was slowly choking him. Liam sat in the gallery directly behind them, hoodie up, scrolling through TikTok with the sound off, still treating the potential dismantling of my life like a dentist appointment he was being forced to attend. Clerk Julia Spencer entered at exactly 9 a.m. She was younger than I'd pictured, with sharp cheekbones and intelligent eyes that didn't miss a thing. Vance stood first, his voice dripping with faux sympathy. Your Honor, this is a tragic but necessary case of a daughter in crisis. Isabel was on her feet before he could finish. Your Honor, this is a calculated criminal attempt at financial theft, executed by weaponizing the guardianship process. We move for immediate dismissal and criminal referral. Spencer's gaze flicked from the witness list to my face, then back again. Call your first witness, Ms. Reed. Isabel smiled, a small, lethal curve of her lips. The respondent calls Dr. Benjamin Carter to the stand. The side door to the courtroom opened, and the moment Ben walked in, everything they had built began to burn. Rain hammered against the great arched windows of the courthouse, a percussive rhythm that sounded like it wanted to get in. I sat at the respondent's table, my fingers ice cold, wrapped around a legal pad I hadn't written on. Across the aisle, Dad and Susan maintained a front of aggrieved dignity, whispering intensely to their lawyer. In the front row of the gallery, Liam was still slouched, hoodie up, earbuds in, a portrait of bored indifference. The whole thing was just an inconvenience to him. Clerk Julia Spencer swept in and took the bench, and the room fell silent. The only sound, the storm raging outside. Arthur Vance stood, his voice oozing concern. "Your Honor, we are here today because we love our daughter. We're only trying to save her from herself." Isabel rose beside me, her voice clear and sharp as glass. "Your Honor, the petitioners are attempting to seize control of my client's life and assets through a campaign of fraud, forgery, and perjury. We ask not only for immediate dismissal, but for a referral to the district attorney's office." Clerk Spencer's eyes narrowed. "I see counsel has listed an additional witness not on the original petition, a Dr. Benjamin Carter. Call him." The side door opened. Ben walked in wearing a dark suit and carrying a thick, red-welled folder. We hadn't spoken since we broke up years ago, and he hadn't looked me in the eye once. Today, his eyes locked on mine for a brief, powerful moment. It was a look of apology, of regret, but most of all, of readiness. He took the oath. Isabel began softly. "Dr. Carter, please state your professional relationship to Mr. Liam Anderson. I am his diagnosing and consulting rheumatologist. 12 months ago, I confirmed a diagnosis of aggressive seropositive rheumatoid arthritis. Without immediate biologic treatment within the first year, permanent debilitating joint destruction is a near certainty." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Susan half rose from her chair. "Objection! That's his private medical information." Clerk Spencer's gavel came down with a single sharp crack. "Overruled. This is directly relevant to the petitioner's claims. Continue, doctor." Ben opened his folder. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were never informed of the diagnosis because their daughter, Ms. Chloe Anderson, intended to fund the entire treatment protocol herself, anonymously, to spare her brother the distress. To that end, she created a revocable living trust containing $195,000 for the exclusive purpose of his medical care. He nodded to the clerk, and a projector hummed to life. Displayed on the large screen for the entire courtroom to see were the bank records, the forged email from the Corpy Travel 91 address, the massive wire transfer, and then the invoices, the mansion rental, the catering bill, the DJ's fee, the 5-figure invoice for the custom fireworks display. My dad's face went from splotchy red to a pasty, sickly gray. Susan gripped the edge of her table, her knuckles white. Ben's voice was steady, clinical, and devastating. That treatment window closed 4 months ago. Mr. Anderson now faces a lifetime of progressive joint deformity and chronic, severe pain, likely requiring opioid dependence. That money was his only realistic chance at a normal life. Liam finally yanked his earbuds out. "What the hell are you talking about?" Ben turned to face him directly, his voice softening with a trace of pity. "Your parents used the money in your medical trust to throw you a birthday party. You needed that money so you could continue to walk normally for the rest of your life." Liam's mouth opened. Then it closed. Then it opened again, but no sound came out. He turned and looked at Susan, his eyes wide with a dawning, childlike horror. "Mom?" She wouldn't meet his gaze. Isabel placed a tall stack of papers on the clerk's bench, the 11 fraudulent witness affidavits. Then she placed a second, smaller stack beside them, the recanted confessions from 3 of the witnesses, admitting they were paid, admitting they were terrified when investigators showed up. Vance leaped to his feet, sputtering objections. Clerk Spencer waved him silent. She read the documents for what felt like an eternity, 8 long minutes while thunder rolled overhead. Finally, she looked up, and her voice was like steel. After a thorough review of the evidence presented, this court finds no credible basis for a finding of incompetence. In fact, this petition is found to be frivolous, filed in bad faith, and supported by what appears to be a coordinated effort of perjury and financial exploitation. She turned her gaze directly on my father and Susan. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, your petition is denied with prejudice. All filing fees and the respondent's full attorney's fees will be assessed against you personally. Another bang of the gavel. Furthermore, pursuant to South Carolina general statutes, this entire record, including all testimony and evidence of forgery and perjury, is hereby referred to the Charleston County District Attorney for immediate criminal investigation. The gallery erupted. 2 bailiffs moved to stand behind my father and Susan. Clerk Spencer stared straight at them, her face a mask of judicial contempt. This case is closed. The marshals will escort the petitioners from the building. My father tried to stand, but his legs seemed to give out, and he sank back into his chair. Susan was now openly, loudly sobbing, and Liam just sat there, frozen, staring at the projected image of the invoice for the fireworks that had cost him his joints. Ben stepped down from the witness stand, gave me the smallest, most meaningful nod, and walked out of the courtroom. I stayed in my seat until the room was empty, the rain still pounding against the windows, letting the clerk's words wash over me. They lost. They had lost. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I could finally breathe. Liam's first severe flare-up hit in June. By August, he couldn't grip a coffee cup without his hand shaking uncontrollably. By October, he was using a walker. His pain medication escalated from simple hydrocodone to fentanyl patches in less than 4 months. At 28, he officially qualified for Social Security disability insurance, $842 a month, after his Medicare premiums were deducted. That was his entire income now, a disability check and whatever spare cash he could make before the next joint in his body locked up and failed him. My dad and Susan lasted exactly 91 days after the hearing. The court-ordered sanctions and my attorney's fees totaled over $130,000. Their beautiful, sprawling house went into foreclosure the week before Christmas. The bank padlocked the wide wooden doors I had grown up walking through, while they loaded what few possessions they had left into the back of a rented U-Haul. I never answered a single one of their voicemails. I put the Charleston house, my house, on the market in January. It sold in 6 days, a cash offer from a couple from Atlanta looking for a coastal getaway. With the proceeds, I paid off the last of my own student loans, closed every stray account that still had my name attached to it, and bought a one-way ticket out of town. Atlanta was only a few hours' drive, but it felt like another planet. I got a new job, a new apartment in a neighborhood they'd never find, and a new phone number that no one from my old life had. I even started going by my middle name at work, Marie, just to hear a name in the mirror that didn't echo with their betrayals. The closing on the house was scheduled for the first truly warm day in March. I drove up one last time with the windows down and music playing loud enough to drown out the ghosts. The low country looked exactly the same, mist hanging low over the marshes, the first blooms of spring showing on the trees. I pulled into the gravel driveway that used to feel like my entire world. The new owners had already replaced the mailbox. The old porch swing my grandfather had built was gone. Someone had painted the front door a cheerful, bright teal, erasing the chipped forest green I remembered. I walked through every empty room one final time. The living room where Thanksgiving had exploded, the kitchen where I used to make Liam grilled cheese sandwiches when he was 5, my old bedroom now staged with generic, soulless art, and a bed that wasn't mine. I left the keys on the granite counter next to the closing paperwork and locked the door behind me for the last time. Standing on that porch, I took one last long look at the landscape that had raised me. Somewhere out there, in a cheap apartment, Liam was probably waking up to another day of pain he could never outrun. Somewhere, my father and Susan were learning what it felt like to be the ones who had finally run out of options. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt. I just felt finished. I got back into my car, rolled the window all the way down, and let the warm, salty air hit my face. Then I turned the car around and I drove east, toward my new life until the familiar peaks and marshes of my past disappeared completely in the rearview mirror. I guess what I know now, what I wish someone had screamed at me when I was 24 and just starting to carry the weight of everyone else, is this: love is not a blank check. Family is not a lifetime subscription that you are legally forbidden to cancel. And the second you decide that someone else's emergency is more important than your own future, you have already signed it away. If you are out there right now, paying bills you didn't create, raising children that aren't yours, or keeping the lights on for people who would watch yours go dark without so much as blinking, please listen to me. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself, and that does not make you the villain of the story, because the people who truly, genuinely love you, they never, ever would have let it come to this in the first place. That house is gone. Those views are someone else's now, and I have never, in my entire life, slept better.